Hey everybody, welcome to the TriDot podcast. We are in a series of episodes where we're breaking down all of the different workouts an athlete will see in TriDot and having a coach explain the workout a little bit deeper. What is this workout doing for our fitness, and how do we do each of these workouts to the best of our ability? Today, I am joined by Coach Matt Sommer, who works as the fitness director at Alamance Country Club and has a master's degree in exercise physiology. Coach Matt and I will be talking about 5 specific TriDot bike workouts. We're going to cover 30-30s, 30-90s, power intervals, power builders, and those sweet, sweet stamina bike sessions. I'm Andrew, the average triathlete, voice of the people, and captain of the middle of the pack. We treat the show like any good workout. We'll start with a warm-up question, settle into our main set conversation, and then wind things down by having Coach Matt answer an audience question on the cooldown. Lots of good stuff. Let's get to it.
This is the TriDot Podcast, the triathlon show that brings you world-class coaching with every conversation. Let's get started with today's warm-up.
All right, Coach Matt Sommer, so excited to have you on this episode to help us learn more about these 5 bike sessions. But let's start off with our warm-up question. And what I want to know today, Matt, is of all the races you've done, there's a lot of races you've done, but there's also a lot of races out there that you haven't done. Yeah, you haven't done every race under the sun.
No.
So what is a race that you feel like you probably should have done by now, but you just, for one reason or another, haven't gotten around to?
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, Andrew, thanks for having me on. Super excited to discuss this topic. I know when you reached out to me about it, I got very giddy. I woke up excited this morning. I know I texted you first thing and said, I'm bringing my A. I said, let's go. I'm bringing my A game. So, I'm just going to encourage our listeners, sit back, buckle down, because this is going to be one of the best episodes yet. I promise. God, that's a great question, Andrew. There's so many races out there, and I'm one that can really just like get overwhelmed and start to pack a schedule and then got to narrow it down. In my heart, what's one race I haven't done yet, but I should have? Come on, you're not competing if you don't say Kona. All right. I have not been able to qualify for Kona.
Has that been a big goal for you?
It has been.
Okay.
2022 really was a hard year for me. I did 3 fulls. It was by default because of COVID transfers, and it really hit me hard. It really shot my long game down and damaged me. And I've had a little bird on my shoulder saying it's time to get back to the long game.
Interesting.
So we'll see what happens in the next year or two. I'm 48 now. It could be my 50-year-old birthday goal to race Kona, maybe. But honestly, obviously Kona, that's the elusive one for me as a triathlete. But I'll be honest, there are a lot of great races out there, and 2 races that I always am like, God, why haven't I done those yet? And they're running races, if you want the honest truth.
Sure.
I've done a lot of tries. New York Marathon and Chicago Marathon. They're right here. They're the majors. I just haven't done them. I've done Boston. This will be my 11th consecutive. I've checked that box. And a goal I've made recently is to do all the majors. I want to do all 7.
Okay.
So I need to start checking those off. It's a lot cheaper and a lot easier to travel with a pair of running shoes than it is with swim, bike, run gear. So plus you're not as it's a great way to see the world and have a little bit of fun and get some exercise. So I think I need to start in the US with Chicago and New York, but God, I want to do London, I want to do Tokyo, I want to do Berlin, and I want to do Sydney now that they've added it. So those are the ones.
Yeah, it's funny. I love that answer, Matt. I love just that you're a big dreamer, and I hope you qualify for all those and get to do all of those. It's funny you talk about just how much easier it is to travel for a run race instead of a triathlon.
Yeah.
And you don't think about it when you're a runner first and then a triathlete, but when you've done triathlon a little while and you go back to a run only event, it's like, this is so easy.
All I got to do is run.
I had breakfast, I showed up in my shoes, and I went for a run.
Yeah.
It's incredible. This answer for me, Matt, my aspirations are not as big as yours. I'm not trying to make Kona or anything like that at this stage in my triathlon journey. I've got 2 races that are just so close to home. I can't believe I haven't done them yet. And so the first one, there's a local sprint. Matt, it is 6 minutes from my house. Local sprint triathlon, pool swim, 12-mile bike, 5K run. It's called the Caveman Tri in Flower Mound, Texas. And I have not done it in the 6 years I lived in Flower Mound, 12 years I've lived in the Metroplex, Dallas Metroplex as a triathlete. I don't know why it's called the Caveman Triathlon. It's every
Right.
single April in Flower Mound, Texas, and
Right.
yeah, it might be a 2026 comeback race for me to just get back to a local event down the road.
I love it.
I should do this event every year, Matt. It's 6 minutes away. What am I
Absolutely.
doing?
They
What am I doing?
they should rename it the Andrew Man.
They should.
They should.
100%.
I mean, I love that you're supporting local. I think that's a big thing too. And I'll be honest, there's so many local races that I've not taken part in. And you got to remind the listeners, the grassroots of
Yeah.
all triathlon is local. If you don't support local, I mean, they're going to go away. And then that's an entry point for so many triathletes is
Yep.
supporting local. So I love that, Andrew, that you said that. And I would challenge all our listeners, get out there, do a local race, because without them, we just don't have as much opportunities out there. And you never know, the next world champion might be sitting on the couch and starting out a local race. So,
Plus
yeah.
they're fun. Yeah, plus they're fun. They're
And
loads
they're
of
a
fun.
lot cheaper.
Yeah. We're gonna throw this question out to our listeners. I'm curious to hear, what is just a race, when you look at the races you've done and the races around you, like, what's the one that you can't believe you haven't done? Find this question thrown out on all of our social medias. Find this question. You can answer in YouTube in the comment box. You can answer on Spotify in the comment box. I monitor both those places and try to shoot back to people. So let us know. What's one race that you just haven't done yet?
Let's go.
All right, Coach Matt, on to our main set. You and I can chit chat about races all day long, that's for sure. But so let's move along into what we promised the people, and that is a breakdown of these 5 bike workouts. And Matt, I'm just curious as a coach. We intentionally in this series we're doing. Vanessa and I are bringing on a different coach every single week for this. I mean, you any of our coaches can talk about all of the TriDot workouts and do the coaching here, but I want to get a little flavor on all of them, right? So
Hmm.
for you in your rhythm with your athletes, as you are coaching them, right, and as they are in their
Right.
workout week, having these workouts pop up in their calendar, how much are you talking with them about, hey, here's the workout you have today. Let's approach it this way. Let's think about this. Let's focus on that. Do you do a lot of that day to day, or does it just kind of vary on the athlete, or is it like when someone's newer on your roster, you're spending more time talking about that, and once they're experienced, you spend less time? What's kind of the interaction like between you and your athletes when it comes to making sure they're doing these workouts correctly?
That's a great question. So I meet with all my athletes weekly. We do a weekly call, FaceTime, Facebook Messenger video, WhatsApp. I want the face to face, the trust, the rapport, develop that. But to answer that question, constantly, every week when we sit down, we first talk about the week that just happened, the wins, the losses, learning opportunities, opportunities for growth. And then we talk about the week ahead. It looks great on paper, but we all know that, life happens. So we have to maneuver things around. I go through every workout with my athletes. I don't care if they're novice. I don't care if they're brand new. I don't care if they've been with me 5 years. I remind them, and I use the word intentionally because it's my tagline: passion, purpose, progress. You got to understand the purpose of the workout. What are we looking to gain from it? Why are we doing it? Where does it fit into our short term goals, long term goals? What skill set are we looking to develop it as a result of that workout? What training stress are we looking to absorb? When should we finish the workout? When should we say, all right, I've had enough? There's so many questions. I always tell my athletes, it's the opportunity to do up to what the workout's asking. We
Wow.
need to know, yeah, it's important for us to recognize when form and technique are gone and that we're now risking injury or just slugging through something. We have to be able to absorb the stress that we're taking from the workout so our body can then translate it to skill acquisition and racing. So it's important to understand why we're doing it. And I always give them, hey, this is going to be a sign or a signal that I've hit enough of it. Maybe it's time to pull the plug. Or do you keep working through it and know what your limits are? Because there's the point of diminishing returns in some of these that we're just sloshing through it versus executing it. And it's important to understand and discern between the difference of I'm checking the box or I'm executing it accordingly with passion and purpose. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's so
I
good.
I always make sure to emphasize if there is a cadence manipulation, if there is a power target, and to remind them, hey, listen, in power intervals, you really want to be at a cadence of 70. If you can't sustain that, you need to drop the power target I've given you so you can execute it at the appropriate cadence. It's not just about the power, it's about the cadence. Or maybe it's a different workout where there's another metric that we're trying to focus on. If we're losing the focus, losing the purpose, it might be time to pull the plug or dial back the power just a little.
Yeah, no, I love it, Matt. Thanks for that. And just what a nice glimpse for our athletes that don't have a one-to-one coach on just the value of it, right? Like just know it's
Yeah.
happening and a very good time for me to remind our listeners if you have the budget and you are interested in a one-to-one coach, if Matt Sommer is your coach, that's what you're getting every single week with him. What he's going to do with all of us today is what his athletes get every single week. So absolutely love it, Matt. All right, we've got 5 bike workouts we're gonna rip through today and just see what we can learn from you about how to do these, why we're doing these as an athlete. And the first one, Coach Matt, that we're gonna talk about is 30 30s. And in just a second, Matt, I'm gonna pop an example of what 30 30s look like on the screen. And I want the people watching, if you're just listening to the podcast, obviously just listen. If you are watching us on YouTube or Spotify, you're going to see a workout on the screen right now. And this is an example of what 30 30s can be for somebody. And obviously, the beauty of TriDot is it's going to give everybody the session that their body needs on the day. And so this might be my 30 30s. Your 30 30s might only have one quality interval like this. Your 30 30s might have more quality intervals than this. It's totally variable. When you get 30 30s prescribed to you, it could look exactly like this. It could look a little bit different. It could look a lot of bit different, but the intent of the workout, TriDot's going to stress your system the correct way for the amount of time it wants to stress your system. So just want to throw that disclaimer out. All 5 workouts we talk about today, I'm going to throw an example on the screen just like this. And it might look just like yours. It might look a little bit different from yours. You get the point. I'm rambling. Coach Matt, what do we see on the screen here? Just in the interval pattern of 30 30s, what is this workout?
I see art to start with. That's just such a beautiful picture. I say that intentionally because I get really giddy when I see pictures like this because I remind my athletes that's what your power distribution graph should look like when it's done. We
Wow.
should be able to hold up a Picasso and compare it to your drawing when it's all said and done. We're making art. And I always challenge my athletes like paint a beautiful picture. Let's see it. I mean, I geek out when I can look at my athletes' power distribution charts and kind of see where it matches. So that's kind of what we're looking to do. You're painting that picture during the workout. And Andrew, you brought up a great point. I mean, and not every athlete's going to get served the same meal. When we look at this, we see this is 5 rounds of 5 30 30s. I have athletes that get 2 rounds. I personally get 6 rounds of 5. To me,
Yeah, you
that is
do.
true
Yeah, you
30
do.
30s. So you have 30 repetitions. And that's why I always say that's the real 30 30s because it's 30 of them. Now, you may be wondering, why do some athletes get this and why do some athletes get others? Let's unpack that real quick.
Yeah.
There's that one great feature of TriDot called the training stress score. And I want to jump on that real quick. Your training stress score takes a look at your ability for your body to absorb, digest, and translate the stress of the workouts. So on the app, you can go in there. Not a lot of people look at this or understand it. We have zone 2 stress, which is the aerobic system, zone 4, which is threshold, zone 5, which is muscular, and zone 6, which is neural stress. Every workout is stressing a different zone. And that is why we get served up different workouts to train the different areas because we're trying to absorb different types of stress to make you a better racer based upon your age, your training history, physiogenomics, if you got that connected, it makes a prediction and basically through the algorithm of what your body can absorb. It's not a question of can you do 6 rounds of 5. It's a question of can your body absorb it and then translate it and then rebound for the next workout the next day.
Yeah, great
That
point.
is why some that's why some athletes get harder sets than others. I have some athletes that are much more talented swimmer than I, and I look at their workouts and I'm like, thank God I don't get that because I would drown.
You and me
And
both,
again,
brother.
yeah, I know. But it's a lot of diversity to it. And as your thresholds go up, as your experience goes up and you demonstrate the ability to absorb the training, you do get served bigger dishes. And I always like to stress that to my athletes. So, but when I do look at this one, I mean, this is such a great workout. It can range anywhere from 3 to 6 rounds of 3 to 5 30-second zone five, immediately followed by a 30-second zone three effort. Now, why do we do this? Well, this workout is all about learning how to surge and recover. And it really translates well to the race course where you might have to surge by somebody and then recover quickly and then surge and recover. So, those are the physical adaptations. It helps you to learn how to clear the lactate out of your muscles and get back to racing. So, hence the 30-second zone five, immediately followed by a 30-second zone three for repetitions. And then they're very kind. They give you a generous 2 minute zone two recovery in between each round. I love this workout. When I see this one on my schedule, I honestly get excited. I love it. I love to paint a pretty picture. Several different ways to execute this workout. You could also see at the very beginning on this one that Andrew's illustrated here. You have 4 15-second zone five kind of primers at the beginning, followed by 45-second zone twos. And then you only have two 1 minute zone fours. That's just to get the legs moving, build up a little lactate,
Yeah.
get you ready for the workout. So those are really important. If you're not doing those, you're not preparing your body adequately to go in. It's just shock to the system by skipping those on that first round of 30-30. So definitely encourage you to make sure you do the workout as written because it does prepare your body to go into the 30-30s. Um, this is a great workout, and a lot of people always say erg mode or non-erg mode. I'm a big non-erg mode guy. I love painting this picture. I mean, I can execute these on my Wahoo kicker and get 100. I've learned because it teaches me how to gear efficiently as well, which translates to outside riding. Those zone five efforts really should be done at a cadence of about 70 to 75. And then the zone three efforts should be about a cadence of 80 to 85. I've discovered in my riding with the gearing that I have on my bike that that's one shift of on my cassette along with the
Wow.
manipulation of cadence, and I can go straight from zone five to zone three. So I've dialed it in from an execution side on a non-erg way that I can execute this perfectly. I think the important thing to keep on this one also is riding posture. I encourage athletes, you don't really ride an arrow in zone five. It's okay to come up to the drops for that 30-second surge and then drop back down to arrow for the 30-second zone three. So I also do a lot of up downs when I'm executing this workout. I feel confident, I feel strong, I feel powerful. And, in the opening, I did talk about when form goes, it gives you, and I look at this, I present this workout, the one that's illustrated on screen, as you have the opportunity to do up to 5 rounds. But if you start to lose it and you just can't maintain it, pull the plug. Pull the plug, default back to zone two. You can always go back and start up again, but give yourself the recovery so that the efforts you are putting in are purposeful and meaningful. But this is one of my most favorite workouts. I feel like there's so much return on investment, and again, when executed properly, it's one of the most rewarding. And I always get done, have puddles of sweat under the bike, and I just give myself a big pat on the back, and I'm just like, "You crushed it." But I absolutely love 30-30s. I used to get intimidated by it when I see it show up on the workout, but it's definitely one of the ones I've learned to embrace because I know there's so much return on investment. Um, you guys all know I'm a big fan of quotes. I always have a strong quote game, and this workout is definitely worthy of a quote. This is the type of workout, and I tell my athletes because it is intimidating. When you look at that, they're like, "Oh no, I got 30-30s this week." And I always say to them, maybe the magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. You
Mm.
know, this is one of those workouts that you just like, "Oh, I don't want to do." But they're also saying, "God, I want to be stronger on the bike." Well,
Yeah.
here's your opportunity.
Yeah.
Opportunity is presenting itself. The magic you're looking for is the work you're avoiding. So let's get down and dirty and get after it and leverage that mindset and let's go in there and crush it together.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. It's just a really fun one. It goes by really quick because you are changing intensity so often. I
Yeah.
what's so interesting to me whenever I do this one is, and Matt, I'm like you. I get 6 sets, so I have a true 30-30. I don't
Yeah.
think it's because I'm a Kona ability athlete. I just think I'm 37, and so I'm young enough and fit enough that try to gives me the full Monty. But
Yeah.
um, in sets one, 2, 3, 4,
Oh,
that
yeah.
30 seconds of zone 3 feels so easy, and
Yep.
it's so restful. It's like, "Yes, I feel better. I'm ready to pump it up again." And then when I get to that 5th and 6th set, all
Yeah.
of a sudden, those 30-second at zone, because it's not at zone 2. It's not at an
Right.
easy. And zone 3 for 30 seconds, like, "Oh, yeah, that's easy." But by the time you get deep in this workout, like, those are a sludge too. Like, those become harder and harder and harder as the workout gets on. So it's so interesting to see in my body, like, how my body is having to recover in zone 3, and that's easy at first, and it gets harder as you go deeper and deeper in the workout. So Matt, just as we look at the system of the body, this is trying to stress. You talk about this is helping us build power, but it's also
Correct.
helping us learn how to recover, without going all the way down to zone 1, zone 2 to recover, correct?
Absolutely. This one's going to be a blend of muscular and threshold if you really think about it. It's such a great workout. And I really do employ that paint a picture mentality with my athletes. Like when you're riding, paint that picture. Think about the zone five, zone threes. You should have very intentional, deliberate spikes. And I'm also a firm believer of progressive. Your last set should be your strongest. So conserve and reserve so you can thrive and survive at the end. Always start a little lower in the first round. Like you said, the first and second round, most people are like, man, this isn't too bad. By
Yeah.
set number three, they're thinking some nasty thoughts about me. By set number four and five, they're questioning our relationship and my affinity for them.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those workouts when they're done, they really are so proud of themselves for getting through and executing. So, yeah, this I will say, and again, it's funny. It's the first one. This is my all-time favorite bike
Oh,
workout
great.
on the
Yeah.
TriDot platform. Absolutely
Yeah.
love this one. Yeah,
Yeah, great to hear. And there's a couple just execution items you pointed out that I want to call attention to. The use of erg mode is really interesting. I personally do use erg mode for this one, frankly, just because it's just, to me, it's easier at the flip of a
yeah,
switch to jump from this intensity to that intensity to this to that. Um, I absolutely hear and understand why you encourage your athletes to do this, not on erg mode. I'm sure I could play around with my shifting and figure out, okay, yes, this
right.
works to get me from 3 to 5, 3 to 5, 3 to 5. I just, because I'm a little lazier than you, I just like to just have my smart bike automate that for me. Um, but I do agree with you. I do sit up out of the saddle for this. I do not try to hold
Yep,
arrow for this because, like, when you're holding arrow on race day, when are you holding arrow in zone 5?
they're not.
You're not.
That's
That's
yeah,
not a position where you're having to hold arrow, right? When you're holding arrow, you're maybe in zone 4 at short course, and zone 2,
correct.
3 long course. Like, there's not really a benefit in being in arrow trying to produce those kind of watts. So free yourself from that burden, sit up out of the saddle, and really push those watts, lean into the power, build the power. Now, Matt, our next bike workout we're going to talk about is very similar to 30-30s. I do not use erg mode for this one because in 30-90s, those 30 seconds are not capped at zone 5. Those 30 seconds are as hard as you can push the pedals. And I don't want erg mode to hold me back on that, right? I want to just be free to push
Right.
what I end up being able to push for that. Here is a 30-90 on the screen. Matt, as much as I like 30-30s, I equally dislike 30-90s. I
Oh,
do not like this workout at all. I get excited for 30-30s. I cringe when I see 30-90s. It's probably because I have weak little runner chicken legs. But talk to us about this one. When you look at this interval pattern on the screen, what do you see in this example of 30-90s?
this is another favorite workout. I love these. I really do. Um, 30-90s again. I personally don't execute this one on erg mode either. Definitely there is some reason to, but this is one in particular that there is no ceiling on the zone 6 efforts. I mean, if you put it on erg mode, you're giving yourself a ceiling.
Yeah.
And again, I also stress on this one when we look at this breakdown, I see 8 repeats of 30 seconds at all out zone 6, followed by a 90-second recovery. Again, we have a very intentional and deliberate warm up. Again, you see those 4 15-second zone 5 efforts, followed by 45-second recoveries and the 2 1 minute zone 4s. Again, that is preparing your body. So make sure you do those. Too many people I know skip those warm ups and then they go in and they feel lethargic. That's why the warm up's there. It starts to accumulate some lactate, gets the body ready, gets the sweat, the heart rate going. I promise you, if you do those warm-ups accordingly, those 90-second efforts seem a lot easier. And the first one's not just a shock to the system. But again, I look at this workout, and the thing that I really stress to my athletes is you're going to work hard. This is a zone 6 workout. So if we take a step back to the training stress scores, this is about neural stress. This is creating neuromuscular adaptations. In the grand scheme of things, if you look at this workout, you have 4 minutes of hard work in the whole hour. 4
Wow. Yeah.
minutes. That's it. And I always remind my athletes of that. That's 4 minutes of work. And then how much zone 1 do you have? You have more zone 1 in the first 3 recoveries than you do in the whole workout. So it really is a good workout. Now, I stress to them, you're going to work hard, but you got to recover harder. And that's the key to these is really embracing that 90-second. I also don't put a cap on their zone 1. As long as the pedals are turning, you're in zone 1.
Yeah.
You got to
100%.
remember that. It needs to be a full recovery in zone 1. So again, it's not necessarily a top of zone 1. Don't be in zone 2. I'm fine with the pedals as long as they're moving. It's like a walking recovery on a run workout. You're in zone 1. The harder you recover, the harder you work in zone 6. Again, on this one, a lot of people always say, Coach, can I stand up? Standing up may not be ideal. I'm not going to say don't do it. In this one, ideally, I do prefer my athletes stay seated. Maybe by the 5th, 6th, 7th round, 8th round, I'll get 9 or 10 occasionally. Yeah, you might have to stand up to get those legs going. At the end of the day, you're looking to elicit a zone 6 power at the highest possible power output you can sustain for 30 seconds. The biggest thing I say on this one is, again, painting a picture. We don't want to see a downhill slope on the 30-second effort.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah. Yeah.
rather see it be a nice level peak like the top of a building. So try to be consistent. Don't spike and then fall apart over the 30 seconds. If anything, I like to see them maybe build an upward slope across that 30 seconds. Very challenging to do. I'm not perfect at it. I try hard, but I can bring the effort and I can bring the intensity every workout. It's about consistency, not perfection. But this is such a great workout. And what I love about this one, when it's all said and done, it is a little bittersweet as that long stretch of zone 2 when it's all said and done. That long stretch of zone 2 is a lonely zone 2 because after that 4 minutes of high intensity work, all of a sudden that zone 2 seems a lot harder. So the one
That's
thing I
so
really
true.
like to,
Yeah.
yeah, I really like to remind my athletes, like, listen, get that cadence back up to 85 to 90 for that zone 2 effort. Spin the legs out, find a happy place, put on the TriDot podcast, listen to some happy music, and just really enjoy that long stretch on the back end because the hard work was done on the front end. It's only 4 minutes of hard work in this case, but that 4 minutes, that's a long day at the office. That was working overtime, in my opinion.
Yep, and that's that neuromuscular fatigue, and you earlier brought up the
Yeah.
training stress profile, and every athlete
Hmm.
listening that's on TriDot, you can't. There's nothing for you to do with your training stress profile. Your training stress profile just is what it is.
Yeah.
But like
Right.
just like Coach Matt said, based on your body, your age, a lot of factors. But you can go look at it, and there's little metrics and little bars that show you, oh, your body can only take X amount of neuromuscular stress
Right.
and this stress and that stress. And yeah, this zone 6 is neuromuscular. And Matt, I love how you pointed out the zone 1 here, where it doesn't
Hmm.
matter. Like, there's not a wattage we're looking for. There's not a
Right.
you don't get bonus points for flirting with the top end of your zone 1
Right.
wattage. Like, the point of that 90 seconds is for your body to rest as much as possible, because the
Yes.
point of this workout is to crush those red intervals, right?
Exactly.
And I made a mistake for a year or two in my TriDot career. And last week or a couple weeks ago on the show, Coach Ryan Tibble and Vanessa Ronxley talked about a few run workouts. And there's a run workout called intervals that I know you're very familiar with.
Oh
And
yeah.
in the interval workout, it's zone 5 efforts. And so for me, I usually get 5 sets of 4 minutes at zone 5. And I used to, before I read the full description, I used to do the zone 5 intervals, and in between, in the rest, I would, like, flirt with that zone that basically was in
Right.
low zone 2. I was still jogging. And one day, I just happened to read the description, and the workout description literally says, "Hey, for the rests, make it a full rests. Stop running.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
walk. And then when the time's up, start running again." And I used to struggle to hold zone 5 through all of the intervals because I was running in zone 2 for that rest. And as soon as I
Yep.
stopped and walked during those rests, I could do zone 5 throughout the whole intervals. And that's the
Yeah.
same case here. Like, TriDot wants you to just barely keep the legs moving on those 90-second recoveries, so that when
Yeah.
those 30 seconds come around, you can just hammer, and like Coach Matt said, hopefully hammer all of your intervals really well and not fall off
Right.
toward the end.
Right.
Really good stuff
The
there, Matt.
only
Matt, go ahead.
The only other piece I would add on to this is if you take a look at that last effort, that eighth effort, um, I know it's not written this way, but I will encourage my athletes take the 90 seconds after that last one. That last one's probably the hardest one. I know it
Yeah.
defaults right back to zone 2. There is no shame, and do not hold your head low for having to recover back into zone 1
Yeah.
for 30 seconds, 45, 90 seconds if necessary. You might not get an A on the paper, but if that's what the body needs to comfortably, and I say comfortably, get back to zone 2 at a cadence of 85 to 90, there's nothing wrong with that. That's calling an audible, and sometimes an audible leads to a touchdown. So
Yeah,
just
it's just
keep that in
practical.
mind.
Yeah, just practical.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, this is another one of these workouts. I remind my athletes, and again, here's another quote for you. You didn't wake up to be mediocre. Those 8 efforts bring your A game. And that's why it's so important that you take those recoveries, because you don't want to kind of go at this in a mediocre fashion. I want 100% effort, empty the tank, and then refill it during those 90 seconds.
Yep, absolutely love it. That's 30-90s, and again, man, I hate this one. But to something you said earlier, it's probably because this is what my body needs, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a strong cyclist, and doing things like this is how you become a stronger cyclist, unfortunately for me. So, moving on to the third bike workout we're going to talk about today. We're going from 30-30s and 30-90s into a couple power workouts. The first one, power intervals. Power intervals. I've got the progression on the screen here. So yeah, not short and spiky. These are some longer intervals. There's
Yeah.
definitely some very specific cadence recommendations here, which not every bike workout has that. So definitely something to pay attention to. Coach Matt, what do you see here on the screen?
Oh, I see another beautiful picture. I'm gonna be
You're
honest.
sick.
Yeah, I'm sadistic. When I see this workout, this is you can ask all my athletes. This is one I do not enjoy. It's not
It's
the
a
workout.
grinder. Oh, it's a grinder.
It's that third round. It's that third round that just kicks my butt. When we look at this one, again, traditional TriDot warm up, you got obviously your 10-minute warm up, which incorporates 3 1-minute zone 4 primers with 60 seconds of zone 2 recovery. But then you go into anywhere from 1 to 2 sets of zone 4 at a cadence of 70 RPMs with a non traditional 3-minute zone 2 recovery. It's important. I always point that out. It's 3 minutes of recovery, not the traditional 2 on this workout. That's an important thing for all our listeners to remember when they're doing this. Give yourself that extra minute of recovery. But the biggest thing Andrew already alluded to is the cadence manipulation. The first round or the second round, depending on what dish you're served up, it's at a cadence of 70. And if you're riding on erg mode, again, you can manipulate your cadence. You can hold it at 70. The power will not fluctuate. That's a very big positive there. For myself, no erg mode, and I try to encourage a lot of people not to. It's managing that power on undulations on whatever course I ride on Zwift. That's the platform of choice for me. Um, I really prefer to do this on the Alp. The Alp for me is one of the most easiest ways because it's a steady state slope. So really it's just shifting and adjusting cadence to get me in the power I want to be at because it's a steady slope right up. My goal is not necessarily to make it up the Alp the whole way, but I definitely take advantage of the gradient to let me just focus on power and cadence only and not have to worry about the undulations of going up and down, because that does get a little bit harder to do this one. But why are we doing this? Let's go back to purpose. I mean, this one is all about developing strength in the glutes, the quads, and muscle recruitment. It's to teach you to generate more power because there are going to be times if you're on a hilly course that cadence may drop and you're going to have to grind through it. So that's what those two first rounds are about at that cadence of 70. You will feel the muscles burning. It's a very much a muscle recruitment workout. Now, if you have the ability to survive those first two rounds, I always tell my athletes, you get the opportunity to do that last round, which
uh,
is usually longer, but the cadence needs to stay above 90. That is just not a natural cadence for me. Zone 4 at a cadence of 90 is not a natural thing. So
that's
that's why
very
that's
natural for me. That's
oh,
like right
no.
at high 80s and 90s. And so for me, it's like
Yeah,
returning back home. It's like, oh, I can finally
gotcha.
ride how I like to ride. But then you're doing that riding with your legs pretty well shot. And so
Oh,
it's a wonky feeling.
they're they're spent. I'm definitely baby giraffe legs when this workout's over. I feel like
Yeah.
I get off the bike, I'm a little wobbly. But that last 12-minute effort at a cadence of 90, as illustrated on here, that's a sludge fest for me. I mean, that's the hardest one for me to get through. I will find my cadence starting to drop a little. I do give my athletes a plus or five cadence allowance, meaning that, okay, listen, depending on the gearing of your bike, you might not be able to get into zone 4 at a cadence of 90. If you need to drop it a little just because of the gear ratios you're working within, 87 is okay. You're not going to
Yeah,
explode
yeah, yeah,
because you
yeah.
weren't at
It's
90.
follow the intent of the workout. If that's yeah, you got to be
Exactly.
in the ballpark
Yeah.
for your
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. And I always joke, I'm like, you're not going to explode. The world's not going to come to an end because you're at 86. If 86 is your sweet spot, 87 is your sweet spot, that's fine. We just don't want you down at 70 again. So it's teaching those legs to turn over more rapidly and build the strength in them as well. So very purposeful. You just got to be very intentional on this one. Again, if you're on erg mode, it's a little bit easier, in my opinion, to keep that cadence up above 90, just because you're not having to worry about the power output. You just got to spin the legs. But again, this is one of those workouts that I personally I loathe when I see it on my schedule. It's not a favorite of mine. And people might be surprised. They might think I love every workout, but this is my kryptonite. This one in particular, that third round. But it's such a rewarding workout again. And I think it's important to really understand it's the cadence is the most important component of this workout. Resist the urge because you're not doing yourself any favors as far as building bike strength when you just fall back when it's supposed to be 70 and you're going in the 80s and 90s. That would just be a basic threshold interval workout. There's a reason there's difference between them. This one is to build a little bit more muscular strength as well as teaching you for muscle recruitment.
And Matt, to that point, we talk a lot about there's a reason why the intervals are exactly how they are. And you like to point out to your athletes, your recovery here is 3 minutes and not two.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is our first episode in this series about bike workouts, but when we start talking about more of the bike workouts, there's a lot of bike workouts that are just different variations of zone 4, zone 2, zone 4, zone 2. And a lot of them you have 2 minutes at zone 2 and not 3 minutes at zone 2. Now, at a
Right.
glance, that doesn't seem like a big difference, but with the data driving the training, Jeff Boer, our CEO, always emphasizes like when you look at how long your rests are. We know this in the pool. Like all of us are so bad in the pool at taking 10, 15 seconds longer on the wall than we're supposed to.
Right.
Your rest interval in every TriDot workout is extremely purposeful. And so when you
Very.
see this go from 2 minutes to 3 minutes, that's a signal that that 2 minute, 2 by 10 minutes at zone 4, that should be so much harder than a regular interval that TriDot's going
Right.
to give you 50% more recovery time at zone 2,
I love
right?
how you put that. Yep, 100%. And this is the type of workout I need motivation on this one. And I'm going to continue down the quote road. The one that I really deliver on this one, and this one is for me personally, and I have to remind myself, if it scares you and excites you at the same time, it might be a good idea to try. And this is one that just scares the bejesus out of me. And but I know at the end of the day, it's good medicine. I need to take it because the return on investment and the results of it make me a stronger cyclist. So on race day, I can really celebrate the gains that I achieved from this workout and how it's translated to me being a better bike split in my competitions.
Anytime I try to work out gives me lower cadence work, so like in this case 70 RPMs, it doesn't scare me and excite me, it just scares me and scares me because I don't want to live there. But again, that's why it's giving me more recovery, and that's why I need to do this workout is because my legs need to push that power. It's the
Yes.
power interval, power intervals. It's called that for a reason. The fourth bike workout we're focusing on today is another power one. This one is power intervals, and now Matt and I are going into power builders. So Matt, let's put this on the screen and see what the difference is between a power interval and a power builder. That they all build your power in some way, just
Right.
in different ways. This is the interval progression for power builder. Again, based on who you are, what your age is, what kind of stress your body can take, your exact interval pattern could look different than this. This is just a really good example of a power builder workout. Coach Matt, walk us through this workout.
Oh god, this is a great one. To me, this is one of the most beneficial workouts out there. It's a combination of zone 5 efforts followed by zone 2 efforts. In this case, it's a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio. And I really make sure my athletes understand that. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So for every minute of work you do, you get a full minute of recovery. What we're looking at here in this situation for power builders, again, you're going to get served up different meals for different people. We have 3 rounds. The first round is 4 repeats of 1 minute zone 5, followed by 1 minute of zone 1. And that should be zone 2. I think that's an error in the on the description there, but it's a zone 2 recovery. The second round is 5 1 minute repeats, followed by 1 minute at zone 2. And the third round is again another round of 4. If you're fortunate enough, I've even seen this served up to where the first round is 5 1 minute repeats, the third round is 5 1 minute repeats, the middle round is a steady state 5 minute effort. So if you ever get served that up, you're at a level 10 workout on power builders and you are a stud or studess because that is the real deal. I've been given that one a few times, and that middle 5 minute is a grind, I will tell you. But again, you got your traditional warm up. You're looking at the 3 1 minute zone 4s just to get the legs primed, ready to roll. And then it's go time. Again, this is one where I typically am on the hoods for the 1 minute zone 5 effort. And then I try to drop back down to arrow for that zone 2 recovery. This workout is all about muscular development. It's so important. This is a zone 5 workout. We're looking at training stress. And again, basically you want to just to develop a broader base of fitness. This is great for rolling hill courses, where again, cadence will kind of fluctuate as well. Those zone 5 efforts are going to be done at a cadence of 70, followed by a cadence of 85 to 90 for the zone 2. You have very long recoveries in between these. And again, that's purposeful. It's 10-minute zone 2 recoveries. It gives you the opportunity to really, I won't say fully recover, but get that heart rate back down, spin the legs out, clear the lactate out before you approach that second round. This could be anywhere from 1 round to 3 rounds, depending on who the athlete is. But this one doesn't scare me too much. I always tell my athletes, you can do anything for 60 seconds. You just got to put your mind to it. That first round, again, very similar to 30-30s. You'll breeze through. You're going to be like, wow, that wasn't too
Yeah.
bad.
Oh, so
That's
true.
that second round can start to get a little rude. And by the third round, it's a
Hanging
grind.
on.
And yeah, the legs are burning, the lactate's there. And specifically that's that third, fourth, and sometimes the fifth effort in that third round. That's where really, really you got to dig deep mentally and leverage that mindset. This another quote, I'm gonna throw it out there. Mental toughness is finding fuel in an empty tank. And that's what that third round is all about. It's finding fuel and really digging deep. And I talk about this all the time with athletes is it's not always inherent for everybody, but building grit, building tenacity, and just building that foundation of mental toughness. And this is one of those workouts that this does that. That second and third round really help you develop the mental side as well as the physical side. And I really try to leverage that component of all the training sessions of mental toughness and, reminding yourself, I can do this. I can get through it.
Yeah, and just to kind of call attention for our viewers to training theory is the wrong way to put this, but to call our attention to like zones, like what different zones mean and are supposed to mean. Zone 4, which is the one we were just talking about, power intervals. Those are zone 4 intervals, right?
Hmm.
That you're just holding at a grindier cadence. Zone 4 by default for your body is close to your threshold. And your
Correct.
threshold is the amount of power your body in theory could hold for an hour. Without filling with lactate and your legs shutting down, right? And so zone 4, like you sometimes zone 4 intervals on our bike sessions get up to 14, 16, 18 minutes, right? That you're
Yep.
grinding in zone 4. Zone 4 is tough, but you can live there for a while. Zone 5, you bump the power up to zone 5 where we are right here. And you see in this example, it's 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. Matt was talking about there's some versions of this where some athletes might see up to 5 minutes, but you can't camp out there nearly as long as you can for a
Correct.
zone 4 interval because your body is working above its threshold by quite a bit, and your legs will shut down after a while. That's
Yep.
exactly where Matt, where you're saying when you first start this, the intervals aren't that long, and so it doesn't feel tough at first, but this will wear your legs out way faster than being at
Absolutely.
zone 4 for a while. So it's interesting. It's a chance. It's power builders. You're building your power. It's a chance to really tap
Right.
into. You're rarely on zone 5 on race day, unless you're maybe climbing a hill
Correct.
or something. So it's letting you push some more watts than you would in a normal scenario, thus building your power. So,
And
Matt,
that's a
any
great point. Yeah, you just brought up a great point. You're rarely in zone 5 on race day. So why do we train there? Why do we do this workout? Why do we spend time in zone 5? It makes zone 3 more tolerable. It makes
yeah,
zone 2 more tolerable for a longer period of time. So if we have the ability to sustain efforts in zone 5, it makes sustaining other efforts in zone 2 and zone 3 perceived and physiologically much more accomplishable. Obviously, duration goes up, intensity goes down. I'm going to bring up another workout. Some people might see those longer zone 5 efforts in the step up workout, where it could be 2, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or even 5 minutes. And that's teaching your body to sustain those efforts over a period of time. But at the end of the day, the zone 4, the zone 5 work, it just makes race day easier because it allows us to settle in our sweet spot of zone 3, zone 2 for a much longer period of time with less effort. So it's getting the engine down the track so that you can ride in a car closer to the engine more comfortably.
no, very, very good. The last thing I'll call attention here to, Matt, and we'll move on to our final workout for the day. Um, there's some pretty beefy recovery intervals here, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
regardless of how many sets you have, regardless of how many rounds of the zone 5 you have, most athletes will see 10 minutes at zone 2 in between those big efforts. That's quite a bit of time in zone 2 to let your body unwind a little
Absolutely.
bit before gearing up for the next round. Is there anything you tell your athletes to be thinking about or focusing on in those longer recovery bits?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's an opportunity just to spin the legs out, reset, refocus, restart. It all starts in the head. I mean, you mentally have to prepare yourself for what you're getting ready to go into. Take the opportunity to recover, spin the legs out, clear the lactate, and get yourself ready, especially in that last 2 minutes of the recovery to go back to work. I mean, you clocked out for 10 minutes, you're clocking right back in. It's time to get back up and giddy up and go. One other thing I would say, and this is a trend that I use with my athletes for every workout, you want to build across each round. Don't shoot it all and just spend it all in the first round. You build confidence when you can get stronger on subsequent rounds. So I'll tell them maybe aim for a lower power target in zone 5 on the first round. Then the second round, try to achieve a higher N+1. And by the third round, make it your strongest round. Because what happens mentally when you start to see your power numbers drop as the workout goes on? It doesn't put you in a good headspace. You don't feel warm
No.
and fuzzy. You don't feel great. Now, let's talk about race day. What happens when you're on the race course and you start too hard or an FTP assessment and you start to see power numbers drop? We start doing mental math, our head starts going to bad places. But when we can build and get stronger as the workout goes on, we feel better. Our headspace is better. We're stronger. And again, it's just a much better positive situation. It teaches you how to build across the workout and gain strength, conserve and reserve so you can thrive and survive at the end. I emphasize that all the time to my athletes is don't swing for the fences on the first pitch. Get a single. The second round, get a double. The third round, get a triple. You want to get stronger in each subsequent round because it won't make the workout seem like a slugfest also by the third round because you're bringing your A game for the last round. You put yourself in a position of success by setting lower power targets and building across the rounds. So if a lot of our listeners out there struggle because they shoot too hard on the first round, dial it back a little. It's okay. Dial it back because this is about translating to racing. And on race day, if you come out the gate too hard, we've all done it. Think 5K. If
Yeah,
you
it's a
gas it on that,
practicable skill. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's called pacing. It's a very fundamental part of racing. And again, I go back to that and they're like, wow, that really makes sense. And so I always tell them, I don't care if it's a run workout, a swim workout, or a bike workout, build through the zone across all the efforts. If it's 2 by 16, your first one should be lower than your second one. Be stronger on the last set. You will, mentality wise, you will appreciate it because you finish feeling strong and confident. And that translates then to better racing and perceived just perception of the whole training program in general.
All right, Matt. One more workout on tap for today, and it is stamina.
Love
A
this one.
TriDot athlete will not see a stamina workout until they get into the race prep phase, where TriDot has to actually start building your stamina to exist on course long enough to reach the finish line.
Right.
So in developmental phase, you will not even see this workout. It's when you sign up
Mm,
for a middle or long distance event and you start getting closer to
correct.
that event, your stamina workouts will get longer and longer and longer and longer. For example, for an Ironman, my stamina bike workouts might start at 2.5 hours, and before the big show, they're going to get up to 5.5 to 6, right? So a lot of variation in how long your stamina efforts might get. Matt, there's actually two different examples I'm going to put on the screen. I'll start with one and we'll switch to the other because TriDot does have a couple different interval patterns for a stamina
Yeah.
workout, but they're all different variations of trying to build our stamina. So the first one is this monster right here, where you're biking for a very long time and you've got a couple, you typically three, maybe three, depending on the athlete, zone 4 intervals, uh, followed by some recovery, and then just zone 3, zone 3, zone 3, zone 3, zone 3, until you're finally off the bike. Coach Matt talks about the stamina workouts.
Oh, I love these workouts. These are such a great opportunity to really dial in race day pacing, and that is the whole purpose of these workouts. The first thing I'm going to say is, and I'm going to throw my quote out on this one to start with. It's not about perfect; it's about effort. And when you bring that effort every single day, that's where transformation happens. That's how change occurs. And you got to remind yourself on this workout, it's not going to be perfect, but you got to bring the effort every single day for this workout. So I can't stress that enough. This situation right here, tell by looking at it, this is definitely a 140.6 stamina bike ride.
Yep.
What we see here is definitely have traditional warm up on the front end, and then you got a long 90-minute stretch of zone two, and then the fun starts, then the party starts. So you showed up early for that 90 minutes, but you got 3 10-minute zone fours with good 5-minute zone two recoveries. I do make sure I point that out, and my athletes understand those are 5-minute recoveries in between there, not two. And then you get a nice, generous 10-minute effort of zone two before you lead into what I'll call your sweet spot efforts. In this situation, it's 8-minute zone three efforts with 2-minute recoveries. That's really going to mimic race day now because that's zone three. In this one, you might wonder, because other people will see it where the efforts are all on the front end. Well, why do we have 90 minutes of zone two before we go into efforts? Well, it's easy. It teaches you that you better be on your fueling and your hydration game, because once you get through those first 90 minutes, you've had enough time that if there are loopholes in your nutrition and your hydration and your electrolytes, it's going to get exposed. It's not going to be easy on the back end if you have not been proactive about staying on top of what I call those three controllables: nutrition, electrolytes, and hydration. Very quickly will you see how hard you fall apart. And that's one of the biggest mistakes people make on these workouts is not fueling, hydrating, or getting enough electrolytes. So this is a great workout for really dialing in. Am I getting enough carbs? Is my fueling game on point? Am I hydrating enough? Are my electrolytes where they need to be? Because otherwise, you will not get through these efforts on the back end. In this situation, being that it's for a 140.6, couple execution tips here. I do those zone four efforts, and I encourage my athletes as well at the basement of zone four. These are not top end zone four workouts. This is not a development workout.
Great
Don't try
point.
to don't
Yeah.
push top end watts because it will deplete the tank. You should be just barely getting into zone four. It should be the ceiling of zone three, the basement of zone four. You're in between floors. So it's a very low end zone four effort. Again, the zone three efforts in this situation being a 140.6, again, intensity goes up, duration goes down. The longer the bike, my 140.6 athletes, I have them do their zone three efforts, execute them at the basement of zone three, the ceiling of zone two for a 140.6. They're not going to be top end zone three. That's not where you're going to be on race day. You're going to be right at the cusp of zone two, zone three. So that's now, if this was a 70.3 stamina bike, again, basement of zone four. And then I typically have my athletes start around the middle of zone three. And
Interesting. Yeah.
we start around the middle of zone three for the zone three efforts. And then depending on the athlete and their ability, I may have them actually rotate through 3 different powers to find that sweet spot. We may do a tier of power outputs starting lower for the first round, maybe 5 watts higher for the second, 5 watts higher for the third. And that's to help them identify where do they feel strongest, the most consistent, and the most steady, because it's about their body and helping them to identify where they're comfortable. It's not necessarily a number that's a cookie cutter approach. It may not be the middle of zone three for everybody. We got to find where can they go for 8 minutes, recover for two, and comfortably repeat that effort. So it really helps them do some self exploration and help me help them decide what hand we're going to play on race day. That's what these workouts are about. That's why this one's so important, because you got to jump around the different power zones in zone three to see where am I most efficient? Where can I get to that my heart rate can come back down comfortably over those 2 minutes and I'm not already behind the eight ball going into the next round? So I would definitely encourage you guys to maybe try a couple different powers, rotate through 3 different ones. If you're on erg mode, you might go 170, 175, 180. And you might discover that 180 was just too much. Eliminate it. And that's why we train. That's why we do these workouts, so we can dial in race day pacing. You don't know your limits unless you try them. It's better to find out in a training session that you overspent then discover that you had more money left to spend, if you get my drift. And then we got to take the wisdom that we gained from this training session and carry it to the next one and repeat and say, wash, rinse, repeat, see if it works again. And that really helps you dial in what might be your race day pace, if you get my drift. But I absolutely love this workout. It could be anywhere from 1 to 3 10 to 12 minute zone 4 efforts on the front end. And I've seen up to 10 minute zone
Yeah,
threes
same.
on the back end. So it really depends, again, based on your training stress score, what your body can absorb. You're not going to come in underprepared because you have less. You're not going to come in better prepared because you have more. It's what your body can absorb, digest, and then translate onto the race course. So I think it's important to remember that more is not always better. Um, Ultimately, this workout's getting your body ready for race day. It's getting the muscles and the brain ready for what it's going to take to do the bike split, whether it's 56 miles or whether it's 112 at a sustained power output for race day. Those 2 minute recoveries, 5 minute recoveries, so intentional. Focus on fueling, stretching, and refocusing. One other tip that I really like to have my athletes do is hit that lap button on every effort. Look for steady, consistent power. You're not looking to have peaks and valleys. You want to be steady and consistent across the efforts the best you can. But yeah, this is absolutely one of my favorites. I mean, I love doing this workout outside. To me, this is one that's very transferable to outside riding because where do you race on race day? Outside. Now, if you do live in an environment where you can't get outside, or maybe you've got to do it early because of family obligations, there's nothing wrong with the trainer. But to me, this is such a good one to get outside because it gives you an opportunity to also test your race day apparel to make sure you've got enough pockets to carry all your fueling or any other needs that you might need on race day. And also to make sure that it's going to be comfortable on race day from a chafing perspective, from a temperature. Are you too hot? Are you too cold? It's such a great workout. This is one of the most important ones in the build that I think a lot of people, when they see, they loathe, but when they do execute it, it really does give them the confidence and the wisdom to make changes or to stay the course for that race day execution. Andrew, you did bring up a great point. I wanted to echo this. You will not see a stamina workout if you are only doing sprints in Olympics. You just won't have one. So don't feel like if you're a listener and all you're
You
doing
you
is
don't
sprints
need
in
stamina.
Olympics.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you don't
you
need
don't.
stamina
Yeah.
at that distance. Yeah.
And the development phase actually is ideal for preparing you for sprints at
Yeah.
Olympics because it's all strong before long. It's all threshold red line, which is where most of us are going to be power output wise for sprints in Olympics, or should be. But this workout is it's a beautiful workout. There are days when I've looked at this and my bills going into 70.3s, and I'm like, oh Lord, I've got 3x12s and 10x10s. And once you get going, it really is dependent on your fueling and your hydration. The
Yeah.
ability to
Mhm.
your ability to execute is dictated by how well are you fueling. You got to put gas in the tank, and this is a great workout that really helps me help my athletes dial in their nutrition. Because if you start falling apart on the back end, was it muscular or was it psychological, or what was the cause? Because if you haven't been doing the training, yeah, this is going to be a hard one to get through. But typically, this one is 100% dependent on adequate fueling, hydration, and electrolytes.
Yeah, if you sign up for a long race, you got to do some long training sessions, right along the way.
Absolutely.
And Matt, I just used to, as an athlete, I used to picture this as, oh, it's just making me go a little longer every week to make sure I can go long enough on race day. But hearing you really encourage, like, approach each interval as if you're in the race, as if you're putting
Yeah.
forth race day effort, really, really interesting. So thanks for that. The last thing we'll do here, I do want to show another variation because as an
Yeah.
athlete's getting ready for race day, there's a couple things TriDot will do with your weekly long bike workout. It's
Right.
often a stamina. Sometimes it's over unders, which we'll cover on a different episode. But there's a few different variations of stamina, and one of them is the
Right.
pattern we just saw in different forms, and one of them is this pattern, which to
Yeah.
me when you look at it, it's not as scary as seeing like 10 by 10, right?
Right.
Like you see that, you're like, I have to hold zone 3 for how long? But this one hurts way worse in
Yeah.
practice. What's different? Is there anything? They're both stamina workouts in TriDot. They both kind of
Right.
serve the same purpose. You're going to get over the course of 3-4 months getting ready for a long course event. You're going to see each of them a few times. Anything different here you prep your athletes for as opposed to the pattern we just saw?
Absolutely. This is what we call stamina up downs. That's the technical name of this workout. And again, can be anywhere from 1 to 3 rounds. It's always going to be a combination of zone 4, zone 3, zone 4. Occasionally, you'll see zone 3, zone 4, zone 3, depending on how it's served up for you and what level you're at. In this situation, you can see that it's 10 minutes of zone 4, immediately followed by 10 minutes of zone 3, immediately followed by 5 minutes of zone 4. This is, in my opinion, a much tougher stamina workout than the other one. The other one just seems like a long dragged out because you have those 8-minute zone threes. In this one, it's a little bit more zone 4 peppered in there. Again, I cannot stress enough. Those are not top end zone 4 efforts. Those are going to be low zone 4, barely outside of zone 3. So again, you might be doing, if 185 is the cap of zone 3, you might be at 188 for those zone 4 efforts and then dropping back down to about 170, 165 for the zone 3. So it's not a big fluctuation between the two. It's just that you're barely touching into zone 4. Again, this one for me is a cadence manipulation. I try to hold those zone 4s around a cadence for me, 75 to 80. That's kind of a sweet spot with the gearing that I have on my bike. I think TriDot specifies probably around 80. But again, like I said, you're not going to blow up if you're in the high 70s. I think that's perfectly acceptable. And then the zone 3 effort's about 80 to 85. So it's not much of a slugfest. I look at those zone 3s honestly as a recovery from the zone 4 efforts. I look at those as an opportunity just to dial in that race pace. I always tell myself I'm climbing a hill in the 10-minute zone 4 effort. It's a long 3-mile mountain that I'm going up, and then I'm just kind of grinding it out barely in the zone 4, going up those. And again, if you're capable of holding arrow, I definitely would recommend it. 10 minutes is a long time in zone 4, but being that you're in the lower end of zone 4, some athletes it's much more manageable. But then always get back to zone 3, get back in that race tuck position, dial it in, get your mind centered around what you're doing. And then again, embrace those 10-minute recoveries in between. You may come up onto the drops for the first couple minutes just to recover. There's nothing wrong with that. Take 2 minutes to reset, refocus, restart, fuel, hydrate, stretch, clear your mind if can't, and then let's get back at it. And again, I look at this workout, I tell my athletes, present it in this exact manner. You can ask, you have the opportunity to do 3 rounds as long as the form is there, as long as the strength is there. Bring the effort. But if in the middle of something, if things start falling apart, take a break, reset, refocus, restart. It's okay to give yourself the grace. Okay. And I think that's the important thing to remember on all these workouts is give yourself grace if you need it, but mentally go into it strong. If you've been doing the workouts, you're just playing the song you've been practicing for the past several weeks. It's well within your skill sets, but I would encourage you to make sure that you set your zone 4 and zone 3 targets at what are realistic, achievable efforts. And again, for 140.6, that's going to be low zone 3, very low zone 3, and very low zone 4. For 70.3, it's again very low zone 4 and middle top third of zone 3 is where I would encourage most people to start. I think if you make some adjustments and really try to be realistic with your power outputs and not be top end, this is a much more manageable workout that's definitely going to command you being on your fueling and hydration game, though.
Yeah, Matt, for all of my stamina sessions in TriDot, it took me a while to land at this place, but when you talk about giving yourself grace, a different form of that is I actually usually I'm doing these sessions on Zwift or full gas in my pain
Yeah.
cave on the trainer. It's just easier, more practical. Wake up at 4 a.m., hop up there and get it done. Um, every 2 hours at the 2 hour mark, the 4 hour mark. Um, I
Mhm.
will let myself actually get off the bike, go pee, get on a fresh shirt, get on maybe fresh
Yeah.
shorts, just kind of freshen the situation up. Doing it's kind of like a little Formula One pit stop. That pit stop takes 90 seconds to 2 minutes.
Yep.
So you're not really like you don't do it in between your intervals, but once you're,
Right.
you know, around the 2 hour mark, either before all the interval work starts or after all the interval work's over, that just for me it was such a mental reset in getting these done
Right.
effectively. Um, you're not going to hurt your performance on race day. On race day, you're outside. There's a lot of distraction. There's a
Right.
lot going on. You don't need those pit stops. But inside, stuck in one place on a saddle with no
Yeah.
wind, no like I do so much better lasting on these workouts with that reset every roughly 2 hours. Matt, one question I wanted to ask, you did reference um, on that particular pattern when to maybe be an arrow versus not. Since these are kind of race practices,
Mhm.
in general, do you like for athletes to do arrow a certain percentage of it, all of it, none of it, the intervals only? Any recommendation
Uh,
there?
Definitely in the zone 3 efforts. I think that's important because race day, that's where you're gonna be, and then also in the balance of zone 2. I think you just gotta be comfortable in aero in zone 2, zone 3. Zone 4 efforts, try to hold it the best you can coming up and down. Again, it's hard. Some people just don't have the ability to generate the power, and again, that's one of those things where you might come up for 30 seconds. I'm not talking like 5 minutes. But if you need to come up for a 30-second break just because low back, neck tension, the other thing is that could be also indicative of a poor bike fit. Okay. So that is something also to maybe take into consideration is, if I'm having upper back pain, neck pain, low back pain, is my bike fit correct? That could be a whisper that you need to listen to when it comes to your bike fit. But there's nothing wrong if it's a really flat course and you're just down. I gotta come up and stretch periodically. A matter of fact, every 15 minutes, regardless of the course I'm on, I come up and stretch, stand out of the saddle, stretch my low back. I go into spinal extension. No, I'm not arrow when I'm doing that, but God, it feels good and it allows me to reset and get back to work. So I do think if you knew to take those micro breaks, keep them minimal, be very intentional and purposeful in what you're doing, and get back to work because you do need to be comfortable in the saddle.
On to the cooldown of our show, where we just have a quick audience question for Coach Matt to answer. And this one came from Michelle. She posed this to the I Am TriDot group on Facebook, and I thought it was a really fun question. So it's almost like a podcast warm up esque type question. I think she was just looking for some good fodder here, but I'm curious to hear if there's a coaching angle here. But anyway, Michelle wants to know, do you put your socks and shoes on, or when you're putting your socks and shoes on during transition, do you go sock, sock, shoe, shoe, or do you go sock, shoe, sock, shoe? And again, I think she was just posting this for fodder just to kind of see what people were going to say. But it made me curious, Matt, from your coaching perspective, does it matter? Is there a faster or more efficient approach between the two ways we can put our footwear on? What do you think?
I think at the end of the day, it's all personal comfort. I think the fastest and the quickest way is sockless, but ultimately, just go straight to the shoes. Now, I don't race that way. I do not want to get blisters. To me, comfort is king. I'm personally a sock, shoe kind of guy. I had to sit there when I saw this question. I was like,
I had to
what
think
do I
about it.
do?
Like,
Because
what do
because
I do?
yeah, because it's so intuitive. Now, the only tip I would give people when it does come to socks and shoes, 2 things that I always do is I always body glide my entire foot and my ankle, regardless of what I'm doing, and I also spray Tri-Slide on my feet and on my ankles. Why? It's not just for the swim. It does not just because the wetsuit goes on easier. It's that when I do get out of the water, it stays on. It doesn't disappear because you're swimming. It lets the socks slide on easier. So that is one way to make sure, because if you've got wet feet and you're putting dry socks on, sometimes they get bunched up. So one strategy is I body glide all over my feet, sock slides on much easier. So I go sock, sock, shoe, shoe, and I stay in the same socks then when I also get onto the run. One other strategy that I like to employ is I put a couple puffs of baby powder in each sock. I just think that's something easy. I roll the socks down so they're easy to pull on. They've got the baby powder in them. I've got the Body Glide Tri-Slide already on the feet. And I just go, I mean, I even thought about it. I usually go left, right, left, right. That's just how I work. I don't know why. It's not like my right foot's gloved any less, but that's just, I had to sit there and think about it. And it was funny. I saw this question. I raced this past weekend up at Tri Cities, and I had to laugh because guess what I was thinking about when I came in off the swim? Michelle's question came straight to my mind. I was sitting there in transition, and I've got people yelling, and with everything going on, all the pandemonium of me racing, I kind of chuckled to myself and smiled. And I caught myself smiling as I was sitting there, and I'm like, left, right, left, right. So I had to laugh about that one, but yeah, and that works for me. So.
Thanks for listening to the TriDot podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on your listening platform of choice. For more opportunities to learn from our coaches, check out our YouTube channel and follow TriDot Training on social. Ready to train with us? Head to TriDot.com and get started for free. Until next time, happy training.